Greetings, friends and soul empowerment aficionados. Welcome to Soul Empowerment. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, and I'm delighted to have you here. This is, again, Soul Empowerment, episode number 68. And today our topic title is Don't Lose Yourself. Press pause. Interesting title for sure, and interesting topic. Thanks to some great people. And Sarah is just coming on now. She's had some problems with her audio, and Gail is away on vacation. So it's just going to be the three of us today, and I'm going to invite my co-hosts to introduce themselves. And Scott, let's start with you today. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do, and why?
Hi, I'm Scott Holmes. I'm in the Boston, Massachusetts area. I'm an energetic practitioner. I do Reiki, polarity, theta, a number of things. But mostly, I work with professionals to get them to find their true authentic selves, go back to their 18-year-old selves, as most people find that their 18-year-old self was usually the best part of their life. It's all downhill from there, right? We're only on the far side of 60, and Lord, it doesn't get any better. But seriously, this is all about you finding the place to start and you having the tools to be able to find what you're looking for.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you, Scott. And I'm glad you're here, of course. Sarah, who are you? Where are you? What do you do? And why?
Hi, I'm Sarah Jane, but you can call me Sarah. I'm in the UK in a not so little place called Bournemouth, right on the south coast. And I am a complementary health therapist, mainly working with energy, having created vocal Reiki using sound and toning, and having realized that the energy of that can help people to reconnect with their inner child, to heal the hurt, the pain, and the trauma of our younger years. And actually, when I say child, our younger years, that is actually could be us of yesterday, because things happen to us throughout our lives, and our higher self, our bodies, however you care to put it, they know where the energy needs to start, that energy needs to go. So I work with people and just say, go where it feels to take you. I'm also the founder of Gift of Healing TV and the main presenter of that. And David and Scott have both been on with me, and Scott joins me on a regular basis as well. And yeah, as Scott said, we're here to support people to find what works for them, to help them to find themselves and the life they're here to live.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so both of you talked about, finding your true self and really embracing the life that you were meant to live. So it kind of fits in with our topic title, which is Don't Lose Yourself. Well, here's a key point that I was thinking about as you were speaking. It's pretty hard to lose yourself if you've never found yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges, I've heard people say, I'm sure you've seen this in movies and various other contexts, people never change. People are always the same. They never change. And on some level, I think that's true. I think on the, in terms of the deepest truth of who we really are, that kind of, it's not cast in stone, but it's a pretty consistent and steady thing. And it always wants to show up. So who you really are always wants to show up and be expressed and be seen and so forth. The way in which I think that statement is true, people don't, or is false, people don't change, is that all of us are capable of learning more about who we really are. And I shouldn't even use the word learning, because more often than not, it's not a case of learning, it's a case of simply remembering. And so I think that the real truth here is we're all we're the same, but we're changing in terms of how we see ourselves and how we express ourselves and how we bring ourselves into the world. And so one of the challenges that I have experienced myself I don't think I ever actually lost myself, but I certainly did cover my essence with all of the masks and costumes and roles and so forth that I thought that the rest of the world wanted to see of me. You know, my job, as I saw it back then, was to make sure I didn't rock the boat. To try, I don't really like the term people pleaser because I wasn't actively trying to please people. I simply was trying not to displease them. So maybe I was a people non-displeaser, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I think a lot of people fall into that category. It's not that we're, you know, consciously or unconsciously, I guess, but deliberately, I guess, in some sense, trying to please others so much as it is trying to avoid displeasing them. How do you folks feel about that? Is that more in alignment with your own life, or am I just barking up the wrong tree here?
Well, we must be looking at the same tree, because I did the same thing. I always found that going into any either a job or if you're going to a gathering or you're whatever you're going to be at, I always wore the uniform, whether it's at the gym, whether it's in a job. I always wanted to make sure that I wore the uniform, because when you wear the uniform, you fit in, right? You're automatically, oh, you're part of the tribe. You're part of what we're doing. You're part of that. And in doing that, I found that I wasn't necessarily trying to please people. I was just trying to not be non-displeasing, as you said, and
trying to fit in.
Trying to fit in, and just you know, I at that point, most of the points in my adult life, I didn't want to be the thorn. I didn't want to be the thumb that stuck, the sore thumb that stuck out right at the first. Right at the get-go. I wanted to be able to assimilate so that I could do my job and, you know, get my bearings and all that. The funny thing is, as I've gotten later in life, doesn't matter much. I don't feel I have to wear the uniform, so therefore the mask, to be able to do that. And I feel much better about it. Went to Hawaii, and I bought. My wife told me that I should buy more Hawaiian shirts because I look good in them. Okay, as far as she was concerned, so I'm wearing more Hawaiian shirts. And you know what? It isn't for every occasion. I just had my 50th high school reunion, believe it or not, 50 years after high school, and it was down in Cape Cod, and so it was very relaxed, and so half the guys wore Hawaiian shirts. So they wore my uniform. So everybody kind of fit in. But it's that you're right about wanting not to get under people's skin immediately and wanting to just kind of be different. Part of that for me was I was always black sheep of the family, because I always brought things up. I always talked about things they didn't want to talk about, or, you know, they lived by the elephant in the room theory, which is if there's an elephant in the room, we look around it. We don't deal with the elephant in the room. We do everything, and maybe it'll go away and on its own, and we won't have to talk about it. And I would say, can we talk about the elephant in the room? And they'd just be like, oh, what elephant? I don't see one. So it was that not fitting in part. And so the rest of life, I tried to fit in before I caused mischief.
Right. Yeah, thanks. Sarah, how about you?
It's very definitely a different way of thinking about it. Cover myself up. I don't see it as covering. I just saw it as, well, correction, from a perspective of the adult and understanding, because certainly as the child, I don't think I had any idea what to do other than don't be me. Sort of, because obviously me was not good enough, because of the things that happened that now with hindsight were circumstances outside of It's definitely my control, but even outside my parents' control. But that's the damage that's done to children with those things. So yes, I covered it up, but actually I disconnected myself from it. So I do feel I lost myself before I even had a chance to find any aspect of me. I just knew that there were aspects of me people didn't like, so let's just get me out of the way, which I think is probably why I changed my name at a young age, going in a new town, in a new school, going from everybody in the family calling me Jane, which is my middle name, and me telling everybody in the new school I was Sarah, because other than family, nobody knew us in the area. So it wasn't a change for any of them. It was just really complicated for the family. And that's been part of my enlightenment of the fact that the only person who ever rejected me was actually me when I changed my name. And so, yes, I do feel I lost myself. And I do feel that, and I hear what you're saying about the people pleasing thing, but I suppose because it's happened so early in my life, and I have no thoughts of memories or anything around any of that. I don't even have any memories around changing my name. I just know I did it.
Right.
I think, so that is totally losing yourself, because there's nothing, so people say, you've got to have some memories. And when I said to a friend, but why would I want to remember being so unhappy?
Yeah, exactly. And
so I think it's different, as we say so often here, it's different for everybody. And I love the fact, but I also find this amusing that it's that you two guys, and then it's me, and it's coming from the masculine and it's coming from the feminine. There are going to be the women that will agree with you and think, oh yeah, I like that way of thinking about it. And I'm not saying I dislike the way about you're thinking of it, but maybe from a masculine perspective, because of having to be the head of the family from the era that you came from, that we all come from, it has to be a different way of looking at things. What women are from Venus, men are from Mars thing, because we do view things differently. And that's what I love about doing these programs, is because the perspectives can come from different perspectives.
Right. Well, I don't like to think of it. I mean, I'm sure that there's some truth in what you say about the masculine versus the feminine. I don't like to think of it that way, though. I think of it more of, there's a David perspective, a Scott perspective, and a Sarah Jane perspective. That's how I prefer to think of it, and that's what I love about this program, because we all come at it from different angles. I think ultimately we are pretty much all on the same wavelength. It's not like we're opposing each other or anything like that. But interestingly, you mentioned men are from Mars and women are from Venus, or whatever, by that guy John Gray, I guess that was his name, the author. I remember when that book came out and I tried reading it and I said, I don't get either of this. I must be from yet another planet. It just helped to cement the idea that I didn't fit in. And that's the problem with trying to categorize anybody into any particular box. You can't do it. Boxes don't work.
Right.
They might help a little bit in order, for my ego mind to figure its way around the world and stuff, to be able to say that's a this kind of thing and that's a this kind of thing, and that helps me to navigate. But the reality is, this type of thing and that type of thing are all part of the same universal consciousness. And so they're really not different, even though they may appear to be different. I think as we were discussing the idea for this topic, I think what we were coming from was this perspective. We've been talking a lot about trying to, having tips for inner peace and trying to get through all the chaos in the world and stuff like that. And so this is a continuation of that idea. Part of the challenge that we face, all of us, I think, is when more and more stuff is going on, we start to adopt some of these old habits that we had when we were kids. And we start to think, oh man, I'm going to have to start fitting in again. I'm going to have to start wearing that uniform again. I'm going to have to start putting that mask on again. This is the kind of thinking that might go on in our minds when too much chaos builds up, when the overwhelm gets, like overwhelming, if you forgive my terminology. And so what we're trying to do here today is remind people, stay connected to who you really are, no matter what's going on. That's the ultimate goal here. And that's where I really want to focus our energy on this topic. So let's start there. How do we stop ourselves from falling into those old habits and maybe slipping into a trap of losing ourselves while we're trying to navigate the challenges of our current world? Sarah, why don't you start?
One of the things I started doing was, if somebody asked me to do something, rather than the automatic, yes, of course I will, and then thinking, why the heck did I say that? How many times have we all thought things like that? Was taking that pause and, taking that breath, taking that pause and saying, not sure whether I can you give me whatever, half a day, couple of hours, whatever. Let me check my diary. Let me see what I've got. Let me see. But you're also giving yourself the chance to think, is this something that I really would like to do? Does it serve a purpose for me? So give yourself, and you do not have to explain if you say no. Give yourself the permission to say no. And if you're thinking, well, actually, I could offer to do this, but not that, then you have that right to say, I really can't help you with that. That doesn't work for me. You don't have to give a reason, but I could do that for you if that would help. If that works for you and that could help them, if they want to turn around and say no, if they want to turn around and say you are being selfish, it's also being in that place of understanding that is their stuff. It's got nothing to do with us. We're saying no because we're being true to ourselves, or offering an alternative because we're being true to ourselves, not to be bloody minded or selfish.
Bloody minded.
And that, yeah, but just for some people, and I'm not a great one for swearing, I'm not, but that saying can be so true. We're not being selfish because we have to take care of our own energies and not lose ourselves. You said we can get back into those old habits of just saying yes. What cap have I got to wear today? Am I the bus driver? Am I the taxi driver? Sort of. Am I the cook? Sort of. And that's so much how families tend to be, parents to children. And I don't have kids, but I do have 5 nieces and nephews, 9 great nieces and nephews, and so I do have a lot of family around me. So I'm still in that process of giving myself the permission to say, let me think about it. Let me check my diary. Right.
Yeah. Honesty tends to work out for the best most of the time, right? And I like what you said about family. It's interesting. The thought that came to my mind is, I haven't really been very close to my family for the last 20 years or so. So they really, all they have is a memory of me back when I was, 30 years younger, 40 years younger, back when I was a kid. That's the memory they have of me. And so they expect me to be like that now. And they consequently treat me as if I am that way. And so I have to go through a process of educating my family and saying, sorry, that's just not me anymore. I don't, you have your memory. I understand that. And all your current judgments about me are based on that model, not on this model. So time for you to do a little bit of digging and finding out more about me if you really want to know me. Otherwise, that's fine. I mean, we've been apart for this many years. I'm not gonna try and please you now, you know. But anyway, Scott, what do you have to say about this idea of not
Go ahead.
losing yourself when the crap's going on around you?
And it brings up 2 points for me: boundaries and burnout. Boundaries, I find, and Sarah, you were talking about it, is we teach people how we wish to be treated, how we communicated with, and that's boundaries. You know, I talk to many people, and they don't like the word boundaries. I don't want to keep anybody out. I don't want to hurt anybody. But boundaries, when they're self-imposed, allow you to be closer to you. It allows you to be truly who you are, and those boundaries. And the burnout, it's when we say yes to too many things, or we put priorities outside of ourselves, and we're striving for those ideals. And for me, in my case, I was working a job, and I'd work 80 hours a week. I was getting paid for 40, but I would work 80 hours a week because I wanted to do really well, and I wanted to really do it. But at what cost? That cost was to me, to my family, to my kids. Yes, I was providing for them, but they didn't have me. When I was home, I was thinking about work. When I was, on weekends, I would be taken away and have phone calls and do work. So that burnout really was a lack of boundaries. And so when I put boundaries in my life, things got a lot smoother. It got quieter. The chaos wasn't as so much. The overwhelm wasn't as much as I had before. And life got easier. And that's when I started hearing that voice, that inner voice, right? I should say here, because I truly believe your inner voice comes from here, as opposed to your mind, your ego mind. And it's that voice that kind of guides you. It's a lot softer voice, and you got to really, really listen for it. And when you quiet everything down, that's when you can hear it. And that's when the pause for me. I just got back from holiday, as Sarah would say, and it really was a pause. I spent hours looking at the ocean, just watching it change, the waves coming in. We were in a place where it was 75 degrees, no humidity, and it was just stunning all week. And it just brought everything way down and allowed me to see and think and hear what was going on within me. Maybe that helps for people. My dad had 2 weeks a year where he could not work. In the old days, right? You got 2 weeks for the entire year. One week he used to work, so he could take the family away for a vacation that second week. So we only really got 1 week a year where he could relax. And I vowed, I don't know about you, but many times raising children or raising myself, I'll never do that, or I'll never say that to my kids, or I'll never be that way. And I found that I was doing the same thing when I was working 80 hours a week. So when I pulled back to be able to come back into me and give more of myself to my family and to myself, it really changed things. And that's when the pause happens for me.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. The notion of boundaries is a really, really big topic. Perhaps something that we should talk about as a separate episode. But what I did want to say about boundaries is that boundaries are, I'm pluralizing. So let's say I could have one boundary, and we can use Sarah's example of someone asking me if I want to do something, perhaps to help them out or something. Well, my boundary right now might say, no, I'm not really being called to help you with that. But 10 minutes from now, I might change my mind, and I might say, I've actually thought about it, and maybe I can fit this in and help you out with that. I mean, I really care about you. I want to help you out. So some boundaries can be very flexible, right? And some boundaries can be very rigid. I'm sure that most people are not very enamored of the idea of going out and killing somebody. That's probably a pretty hard and fast boundary for 99% of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so unless you were in absolute fear for your own life, you probably wouldn't do anything like that. It would take a huge amount of energy to break through that boundary. So you've got boundaries on the whole spectrum of life. And I think it's important for people to understand that the fact that I'm saying no right now doesn't mean it's no forever, or the fact that I'm saying yes right now doesn't mean it's yes forever. I may change my mind about that too. So we have to be honest all the time. And one of the things that I have actually done, I've had this happen to me a couple of times. I've had someone ask me if I would do something for them. And I said, oh, sure, absolutely, no problem. Then I went back and I did some internal reflection. And I realized I was saying yes just because I knew he wanted me to say yes. Not because I really felt honest about that. So I summoned up the courage and I went back to him and I said, I want to share something with you. I said yes to you, not because I truly wanted to do this, but because I knew you wanted me to help you. I wasn't being honest to myself. Now, as it turns out, I do want to help you, but I don't want to come at it and I just, knee-jerk yes because I'm trying to please you. I want to say yes because it's coming from my heart. And he said, wow, no one's ever said that kind of thing to me. And I said, and I'll tell you, it's pretty hard to say, so I can imagine why most people haven't said that to you before. But I'm trying to be honest, and I'm trying to be true, and I'm trying to be integrous in my life. And so I want to share what's really true for me and not just do knee-jerk response. Now that required me to take a pause. It required me to take a moment and say, wait a minute, something about that didn't feel quite right. You can always go back. As I've said many, many times before, you cannot unchoose something, but in the next moment, you can make a new choice that might switch things around. So keep those things in mind and remember that when you're pausing and checking in with the true nature of who you really are, that is a powerful, powerful process right there. Absolutely not 100% not selfish, but true to oneself.
I found that, and someone gave me this, is before I speak, take a breath. And I went, oh, what would that change? It's amazing how quickly you can respond. And I was raised to respond very quickly because we used to throw darts at each other verbally in our family. That's how we kind of did things. And I had a very sharp tongue, and I would throw out things, and people would always take them wrong. I didn't really mean it. I was just being acerbic. Okay. Oh, no, I was being a jerk. So that breath before I speak allows my brain to catch up to my tongue. And does it need to be said? Is there a way to say it better? Is there more consideration to be done before I speak? Just like you were saying, David. And it's as simple as a 3-second pause can change the way you act and interact with the people you're talking to.
That's a really good point. And I think it's not like when I ask somebody something, I'm expecting an instant answer. I have no problem when someone actually takes that breath and it's an audible breath. They might go in, let me think about that. I actually don't object to that at all. I don't think I ever have. In fact, I kind of appreciate it. So I'm glad you brought that up because it's a really powerful reminder. It's like the whole story I'm afraid of public speaking because I don't know. It's the most terrifying thing I do, and I remind people, no, you're not really afraid of public speaking because you have no problem talking to me right now, telling me all about yourself and your stories and everything else. You have no problem with that, you know. And in fact, if there were 5 or 6 of us in a circle talking, you'd still have no problem with it. What you are really afraid of is getting up on stage and having all those eyes looking at you and imagining that they're all judging you. That's what you're afraid of. And the truth is, 90% of the people in that audience, maybe even more, 95, 96, 97%, they're not even thinking about who you are. They're listening to your speech. Yeah, they're looking at you for sure, but they're mostly just engaged in whatever it is you're saying. It's very rare that someone in the audience is actually sitting there judging and writing down, oh, this is terrible grammar. This is awful speech, blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. People just don't do that, you know? So lighten up on yourself and stop judging yourself.
I love it.
It's really, really important, I think. And who is my harshest judge? Well, it's me. I suspect that's true for most people. So if we can learn to stop judging ourselves, I mean, things would just massively improve all around.
I'd like to go back to boxes and boundaries, because we talk about boxes and putting people into boxes. And to a certain degree, people don't tend to have a huge problem with that. Well, of course, I'm the same as all these people that do all the same thing, except for the fact we're meant to be individuals. So absolutely, we should get rid of the boxes, because that's something that schools put into place and workplaces put into place and governments put into place to do with education, health, etc., etc. You know, sort of, have we got the ability to read and write? Can we speak languages? All of those type of things we're put into boxes, but we're unique.
And sometimes they're physical boxes. Have you noticed in offices, they call them cubicles because they don't want to use the word box, but ultimately that's what they are.
Well, even an office is a box, isn't it? You know, so,
right.
So, but boundaries. If somebody says no, then that boundary is their self-preservation, and that should be respected by each of us. We're not trying to keep people out. We're trying to protect our energy. And that, so a box is something totally different to a boundary, because some people may think, well, boxes are boundaries. No, they're not. The boundary is about, you've just said something to me that I don't like. That's come from my understanding, my perspective, things I've gone through in my life. It may not be what you mean, and that's where I've said this before. If you don't like something somebody has said, ask if they mean what you heard, not what they said. Because in the majority of cases, they will have meant exactly what they said. It's just how you have interpreted it. So you don't repeat their words, you repeat your understanding of their words. Now, if you get a, yes, that's exactly what I meant, you know where you stand. If it's, no, I didn't mean that at all. No. Then you can try and get an understanding of what they really did mean. But if we don't ask the question, how are we going to find out the answer? We've gone into a judgment about them based on our understanding of what they have said. So maybe when somebody says something and you're uncomfortable with it, it's about that pause. Okay, that's instantly how I've taken it. Could there be another meaning? And I did this with my mother. She said something sort of a few years back. And I said, you could take that 2 ways. And sadly, her comment came, and it wasn't actually about me. It was about one of my sisters. And she sort of sadly said, she said something that meant that she had said, sadly, the first thing I'd understood by what she said, which was not the pleasant thing. But okay, I asked that question. And it's then up to me whether I say anything to anybody. We were going through major ructions at the time. So sort of, it's just like, and sadly but that happens in all families. You know, somebody gets upset about something, you know, and bearing in mind one of my sisters and my mother clash dreadfully. They're so alike, it's ridiculous, but they clash. But this happens in families, whether it's the children, whether it's a parent with a child, whatever it is, these things happen. And it's then, do we set a boundary of, okay, and yeah, we had to have that thing. It's like, stop sticking me in the middle. I'm not backing one against the other. But that's about our preservation. And sometimes we have to get strong with the words that we use and the tone of voice that we use with people.
Yeah, and it's not always going to be pleasant.
No.
Is it? And this is the thing that I notice a lot of people, oh, please don't yell at me. Don't be nasty. Don't be mean. Don't be this. Don't be that. Be nice. Be nice. How often have we heard be nice? I say, screw that. Don't be nice. Be real. Be real, be honest, be open, and do it as compassionately and as gently as you possibly can in the given moment. But the most important thing is to be honest and to be real. And don't worry about whether someone thinks it's nice or not. You know, that we got to stop it. We got to stop this being nice crap, because all it's doing is turning us into a bunch of wusses. So, yeah.
Well, you can't tell a joke anymore because everyone gets offended. And
yeah. And your being offended is my fault somehow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Always, invariably, yes.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, Sarah, about what you're saying about how with family dynamics, how we all, I don't know about you, but when my family all gets together, my brother and two sisters and we cousins, everybody's kind of reverts back to that role that they had within the family. It happens so very often. My wife looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" And I went, "What are you talking about?" "Well, this isn't you," because we had a family function, and I didn't see anything wrong until we got home and we were talking about it. And I went, "Oh, I was filling that role within the family, you know," and it changed it. Really, she really opened my eyes to it, and it's so interesting how family dynamics kind of position us to how we behave and what we do.
Yeah, I've been known. I have done that thing within the family, and I said no. Initially, I wasn't popular, and then slowly it gave everybody else in the family permission to say no. It was just like, no, it really did not resonate with me. It didn't feel right to me. I won't go into the situation of it. It was just like, no, I'd made an offer. You started to abuse that offer. And so my reaction was, no, it's not happening anymore. And initially it wasn't I still actually think the individual still doesn't appreciate it, but that's by the by, because it was, golly, it's got to be coming up for 8 years ago. And it's just like, but we have to protect ourselves. And so many people enjoy coming to my home because of the energies here. So why would I want to knowingly bring in disruptive energies into my home? Because that was what this was about. And it was just like, can so and so and so and so come? No. And it was just like, it was sort of, and if you don't like it, I'll stop it. I'll cancel the whole thing. It's a boundary. It's not because I was trying to keep people away, because we spent that whole weekend with that individual. The individual I did not want in my home, had in my car several times that weekend, giving them lifts. So I didn't go out of my way to be nasty and mean. I was just protecting the energies of my own home and my own to a certain degree. So it's having the courage to do that. And when you can do that, whether it's with family, whether it's with friends, whatever it is, you give them permission to do exactly the same. For them to say, actually, oh, what did Sarah do? She said no. Actually, can I say no? So we stop losing ourselves and we're being honest and truthful with ourselves. And because you talked about honesty, but it's also about caring. If we're not honest with ourselves, if we don't care about ourselves, if we don't love ourselves, if we don't believe in ourselves, how can we expect to be able to support others in any way, shape, or form at all? Because we're coming from a negative energy rather than an acceptance of who we are. And we can only bring the truest energies of ourselves when we consider ourselves first.
Right. Yep.
Beautiful.
Yep. They talk about looking out for number one, and many people interpret that as being a very egocentric way of being. But the reality is, if you're not looking out for number one, then number one is going to perish.
Yeah.
And is going to get lost in the flow. Yeah, I totally agree with you. This, the notion of collectivism, like we should all treat each other as a unit, think of ourselves as one with all that is. That's beautiful. But even though it might be true on an esoteric level, I still have to take care of me. I have to honor my truth before I can ever honor yours. Why on earth did Jesus say, love your neighbor as yourself? Well, my interpretation is I have to love myself first, then I can express that same love for my neighbor. That's what it means for me. Some people might say, well, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. Jesus actually meant this. And I'm thinking, yeah, great. So you met Jesus, did you? And he explained it to you? Anyway, I think it's absolutely right. Look out for number one, and don't make that a criminal offense.
What I find is that I find that many people have overlook the boundaries of their bodies and don't take care of themselves, or they overlook it, or they push through it and don't go to the doctor, or don't seek help for things when they first start. And then when it gets chronic, that's when they try and find something, and then they're limited to their capacity, their capabilities. And what I've always believed is that if you don't take care of your body, health being ultimate, you can't be there for anybody else. You're the one that's going to be needing help. You're the one that's going to be limited into your capacities. And how can you give of yourself if you can't give to yourself? You can't do it unless you saw a meme just yesterday. You can't give unless your cup is full. It has. Right. You have to be able to be filled first before you can give.
Right.
I've been at the point in my life where my cup was empty because I gave everything else. I gave everything away. And it wasn't until I started putting back into it that I could actually end up doing more for people. That I, instead of just kind of giving myself away, that I could do more and be more for people and be more present and not be in fight or flight, that chaos, that overwhelm. And it really settled me down to be able to, here I am, I'm present fully, and I can pause. And it also brought up the pause. Every morning I don't know, I'm sure we all have our own rituals, but I do yoga. I'm learning Qigong. I do meditation. And that 15, 20, half hour start of my day allows me to really find that place where I am. And I get answers all the time to things that I'm working on. They just kind of naturally flow through. And it's when I do that I feel much more grounded, but also much more true to myself about what I really want, what I really need. You know, if I kind of sleep on it and wake up in the morning, do my rituals, and then the answers come, and I don't have to stress over them,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
beautiful.
that pause button for me.
Yeah, that's great. You know, one thing that I have become aware of in recent years is that you're never actually really empty. You're always connected to the source of all it is, even though you may not necessarily be aware of that connection. You may have forgotten about it. You may have been so busy with all the stuff that you're doing, that you forgot to just be for a while. And so what you're describing, Scott, this idea of meditation, qigong, and other things that you're doing, and having the answers just come to you, that's precisely what we're talking about here. It won't necessarily always come to you in the form of an answer, like to a question or something, but a knowingness, a deep knowingness that you are a divine, magnificent, unlimited, sovereign, spiritual being of light and love, who just happens to be sharing a temporary human experience here on the physical plane. That's what we all are. And when you can take that pause for yourself, a conscious time out to just sit and be present with that, all of a sudden the truth comes to you. And this notion of self-love just naturally bubbles up inside you. Practice it. Try it. See what happens. It's really quite beautiful. And like you, Scott, I have some of my own rituals too. You know, and you talked about taking care of your body. Well, I started doing something with a nebulizer to try and heal my lungs. And I do that while I'm meditating. I figure, why not do two things at once? My body can handle it. My mind can handle it. My heart can handle it. You know, my soul can handle it. So it's great. You know, multitasking doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be super productive, but you can do something for yourself. And I figure if I'm going to spend this time reconnecting to myself, reconnecting to source, and staying and amplifying that connection through my day, then I'm going to do all the things I can at the same time to make it happen. So that's just me. I mean, other people might have a different idea, you know. But you talked about qigong and meditation. Well, there's those, of course, but there's also plenty of other things you can do. Maybe you like yoga. Try doing some yoga. You know, maybe your mind is focused on the pose that your body is in, but while you're settled into that pose, just let it be and see what happens. I find yoga absolutely amazing. I feel like my breath expanding, my body expanding, my soul, everything expanding while I'm doing that. Or maybe you like writing. So go out and write a poem. Sit under a tree on a nice sunny day and just write a poem. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to even make any sense. Just write it. Let it come from your heart and soul. I mean, these are little tiny itty bitty tricks that you can do to connect back to yourself and just resonate with that natural happiness and joy that's already there. I love this conversation. We got so many great things coming up. Thank you so much, everybody. Sarah, did you want to add something else?
I was going to say that creating a new priority list, because when we were talking about this, it was just like, if you were asked, who are the most important people in your life? Where would you come on that list? And for so many of us, we wouldn't even be on that list. Yet we're the person who should be at the top of that list. You know, when somebody says, you introduce yourself to somebody, do you use your name? Or is it, oh, I'm so-and-so's mother, and then you give your name? Or I'm so-and-so's wife or husband or whatever it is. We first and foremost are ourselves. And so that's how we should introduce ourselves. So be caring of yourself. Be patient with yourself, because these are learned behaviors that are not easy to get out of. And we can, as Scott was saying, when you're in family situations, you can find yourself going back there. I sort of tend with my sisters, we tend to find ourselves in the kitchen, staying out of the way of all the rest of it. But it's so important to be patient with yourself. We've all been trying to work at this for years, and we still find ourselves slipping backwards. Right. So I find myself making offers and then thinking, oh, why did I do that? Because that's how I spent so many years of my life, people pleasing. And it was about people pleasing for me. So be patient with yourself. Find the thing, whether it's a breath, a pause, being strict with yourself, and it's, can I have some time to think about it? Can I have time to look at my diary? Whatever it is, find a way of saying, I'm not answering now. So that you've had that, so you haven't got to do what David did, say, I care very much about you, and yes, I will do it, but I came from the wrong perspective when I said yes. But don't put yourself in the place of actually letting somebody down because, oh, why did I say yes? And you haven't got the courage to go back and say no. And then you end up by not doing anything, and you let people down. And you're in judgment of yourself, and they're in judgment of you as well. So it's that openness, it's that honesty, it's that self-preservation, it's that self-care. And if you make a mistake, you make a blunder, whatever, you've said something and you think, oh, I actually meant the opposite, then have you got the courage to go back and say, I'm really sorry, but no. Because that's part of boundaries. But right. Maybe it's a boundary you have to have with yourself, of honesty with yourself, and therefore with others. And it's far better to say no to somebody than let them down.
Yeah. And you may have this idea that saying no is a form of letting them down. And maybe on some occasions that's actually true. But the fact of the matter is, you still ultimately have to be true to yourself. You have to be honest. Well, you don't have to, I guess. I mean, I'm saying if you are choosing to be a person of high integrity, then you're going to have to adopt a certain mindset and a certain way of being. I mean, if you don't care, well, go ahead and do whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's up to you. How many friends are you going to lose if you're not caring? If you're constantly letting people down? If you say yes and then, I mean, think about it that way. On the other hand, if you say yes and you follow through, if you do what you say you're going to do and you prove that you're a person of high integrity, even when you say no, people are going to respect you a whole hell of a lot more. I think integrity is, for me personally, that's my highest value. Integrity. There's really no higher value. And that means, for me, having my thoughts, my words, my actions, and my emotions all lined up in the same direction. So what that means to me is, how people say, well, your word is your bond, your word, you have to, your actions and your words have to line up. Well, okay, maybe so. But even if my actions and my words line up, but my thoughts and my emotions are not in alignment with that, I'm out of integrity, like it or not. And this is something that Sarah has been alluding to. I said yes, and I'm going to follow through because I said yes. but I don't like it, and I'm really pissed off that I said yes, then I'm out of integrity. My only option at that point is to take some self-accountability, look at myself and say, all right, what was I really thinking when I said yes? What can I do now can I renegotiate this? Can I go to the person and make a new agreement that has nothing to do with the old one? This is something that we all have the power to do if we choose to do it. And simply becoming aware of being out of integrity is a powerful, powerful force, because now when I see that I'm out of integrity, I can look at my thoughts and my emotions about that, and I say, so what was I really doing? Was I coming from a place of one of my unconscious shadows? What shadow might have been active at that time that was driving me to behave that way? There's so many things that you can learn about yourself just by having that happen. What a gift. Oh man.
Curiosity is powerful. When we look at ourselves a little bit differently and perceive ourselves a little bit differently, much like you said, when you ask yourself, where the heck did that come from? Why did I react like that? What part of me was really feeling that? That's where curiosity can really get to the heart of a lot of things. Right. Curiosity is so strong if you want to find out who you are. Using that as a tool, just be curious. If somebody says something you don't like, much like Sarah said, ask what they really meant. Language. Sarah says things because she's in England. She says certain things, and I kind of look at her and go, what does that mean, really? or how did she mean that? Or is that a good thing or a bad thing? So it's that perception of what people are saying and how we perceive it that makes the difference. And so just be present and curious, and a lot of things take care of themselves.
Yeah. One thing that has been bubbling up, and it just formalized in a statement now. It's really important. We've talked about honesty and openness and being truthful with other people. But it's even more important, way more important, to be honest and true to myself. Each of us has the power to do that. How can I possibly be honest with either of you, or anybody for that matter, if I'm not honest with myself? If I'm lying to myself, man, that's a recipe for disaster. Because it's going to come out somehow. If I continue doing that, it's going to come out sideways somewhere, and someone's going to get hurt. Not least me. So I think it's really, really important for all of us to just kind of remember that we are here to have a fully lived experience of this human journey. That's what we're here for. And some of us have ideas, concepts, things that we're doing that are in common, and some of us are very different. And that's cool too. It's all part of the human tapestry, right? So I know it's coming up to the top of the hour, and Sarah, I want to give you a chance to say some powerful final words before I close us out.
Just be true to yourself. Love yourself, care for yourself. And it doesn't matter what other people think of you, because in the majority of the cases, they're not anyway. And that was the light bulb for me. And that was a weight lifted off my shoulders. And if somebody doesn't like it, that's their stuff. But remember, when you're always doing for other people, you're holding two people back, yourself and the other person. Right. We're here to do things for ourselves. It's great to have help at times, but we're here to live our own lives. We're not here to live other people's.
That's right. Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. Scott, what final words would you like to share this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, or whenever we are? Whenever anyone's watching, right? Is we talk about authenticity, and we don't always kind of define what authenticity means. But when you strip away, for me, it's always been when you strip away all of the excess, all of the masks, everything that we put on, and we get down to our basic selves. That's just that vulnerability and being able to be vulnerable and show people who we are. That's authentic. And
Right.
when you can walk into a crowded room of people and just throw it all away and be who you are with no fear of judgment, you got the world on a string.
Beautiful. Thank you. I guess what I'd like to just say is to remind people, don't lose yourself. Stay connected to the truth of who you really are under every circumstance to the maximum extent possible. Press pause when things are happening, and then just go ahead and live your life. That's the best advice I can offer today. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching this program. Thank you for being a member of our soul empowerment group. It's just awesome. And I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. We'll see you next time on Soul Empowerment. Bye-bye for now.